beluga. That is Tika. And Tika is, no, never mind. I couldn't see with the sun. Tika is over there working with Indy. She's making her way under the bridge there towards the shallow area of the exhibit. She's giving you a wave now, and Tika just turned 3 years old on June 10th. Now, we also have another very special beluga with us. We actually have Tika's mother here with us today, working, who's now at the very front of the class with her trainer Phil, giving you a wave. That's Keela. And Keela is a very special beluga whale because she's actually the first beluga to be born and conceived at a Canadian aquarium, and that happened right here in Vancouver on July 23rd, 1995. So we've got a mother and daughter, but we also have grandmother working over on that rock island with her trainer Sandra. We also have Aurora, and Aurora is Keela's mother. And last but not least, we also have Kavna here with us today, also over there by the rock island working with her trainer Katie. And Kavna is a very special beluga whale as well. She's actually one of the oldest belugas to be found in any zoo or aquarium around the world. And she's in her early 40s.
Wow.
So feel free to give our belugas a hand. Now, despite the fact that we don't normally find beluga whales in our backyards, it is our lives and the lives of beluga whales that are actually intimately connected. Do refresh my memory. Shout it out. Where can we find most beluga whales in the world? In the Arctic. Thank you very much. Now, belugas are the only things that live in the Arctic. We can also find gyrfalcons like we just learned about. We can find polar bears, fish, and even people. And it is the lives of these people and animals like beluga whales that are shaped by their extreme environment. In fact, beluga whales have a number of adaptations that allow them to thrive in those Arctic conditions. And the first one that I'm going to discuss is actually what you can see wiggling and jiggling all over their bodies. It helps to keep them warm. Does anyone know what it's called? Blubber, exactly. Blubber or Keela is showing off her blubber there, right at the front of the glass. Now, about 40 to 50% of a beluga whale's body weight does consist of this blubber. And to give you an idea of how much blubber you would have if you were a beluga whale, I'll get everyone to give me a thumbs up. Stick out your pinky and put your thumb to your belly button. That's how thick your layer of blubber would be wrapped around your entire body. Now, they also have another very cool adaptation that allows them to thrive in the Arctic. That's actually something very unique to beluga whales. They have very small but very powerful appendages. If you look at the pectoral fins or flippers there of Keela, she's just showing them off at the front of the glass view. And you also saw our beluga whale's tails earlier as well. You've probably noticed they're a little bit smaller than most other whales and dolphins. Now, this is actually to reduce heat loss, because what's the first thing that gets cold when we go out in the cold? Our fingers and toes, exactly. So that's why the appendages of beluga whales are smaller. Now, they are very powerful as well. We just saw Keela demonstrate how she can use her tail to lift her body mostly out of the water.
Because I'm doing video
already. What they can also do is actually use their pectoral flippers to actually swim backwards. And that is something very unique to beluga whales. Now, I also mentioned that people have adapted to live in the Arctic as well. And about 85% of the people that live there are Inuit, and the Inuit have been living in the Arctic for over 5,000 years. Now, they do live off the land and even rely on beluga whales as a very important source of vitamins and nutrients. In fact, the Inuit get the same vitamins and nutrients from eating beluga blubber that we do when we eat fresh fruits and vegetables. Now, this is fairly significant considering some of the most northern and remote Arctic communities only receive a fresh shipment of food once a year. Now, the Inuit do ensure the whole animal is used after a hunt. There's Keela showing off her blubber for you there. But they get very creative when they do this. One of the things they can do is actually make they make shoelaces out of beluga skin. And although we aren't in the Arctic right now, we are still affecting it every day. And we affect the Arctic when we use energy. Every time we use energy, we emit different types of carbon gases into our atmosphere, and they get stuck there. These carbon gases are very good at trapping heat, and because of this, we are seeing temperatures rise around the world. Now, one of the things that's happening in the Arctic specifically is that the ice is melting faster in the summer and it's freezing slower in the winter. Now, this is having a huge effect on everything that lives in the Arctic, the entire food web, and that's because the foundation of this food web actually lives right on that sea ice. Now, this foundation consists of a small plant-like species called sea ice algae. Now, this sea ice algae lives on the bottom surface of the Arctic sea ice, as I mentioned. Now, invertebrates like to eat this sea ice algae, and fish like to eat invertebrates, and if you are a beluga whale living in the Arctic, you're going to be eating a lot of those fish. Now, of course, with less and less sea ice, we are seeing everything that lives in the Arctic affected. Now, I did mention that one of the leading causes of this global climate change is energy use. And not surprisingly, large cities use a lot more energy than small Arctic communities. Surprisingly, however, we can find a small population of beluga whales living right next to Canada's two largest cities. So pop quiz, who can tell me, shout it out, what Canada's two largest cities are? Toronto and? Montreal. Thank you very much. So Toronto and Montreal are Canada's two largest cities, and they are located right on the Great Lakes, the largest freshwater system in the world. Now, water from the Great Lakes does run into the St. Lawrence River, which itself flows into the Atlantic Ocean. Do we have any visitors from out east with us here today?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go, quite a few.
He's from the west.
Well, welcome. You're actually very, very lucky because you happen
You just
to live
said east,
right next
not
to
west.
a population
No,
of
they
about
said
1,000
east.
beluga whales in those
said
St. Lawrence
east.
waters. And although I'm sure that you and most people in that region don't rely on beluga whales for vitamins and nutrients, there are people who live out east who rely on them economically. Now, that's because there are a small number of whale watching operations that run through the St. Lawrence waters, hoping to catch a glimpse of these white whales. Now, what we saw there was a very high energy behavior, probably something that you wouldn't see if you were to hop on a boat in the St. Lawrence. What we're seeing from Kavna there by the Rock Island Antica here is, of course, is a much better depiction. What you are seeing run along the backs of our beluga whales is called a dorsal ridge, and this is what beluga whales have instead of a dorsal fin like you would find on most other whales and dolphins. Now, this dorsal ridge can get individual nicks and notches on it, and just as our fingerprints are unique to each one of us, the dorsal ridges of beluga whales are unique to each individual as well. So when we take pictures of these dorsal ridges, we can actually learn how to identify individuals within a population, and we can therefore travel out into the waters where those individuals live and look after their well-being.